with a very special guest in Jim Gaffigan, the comedian, humorist, philosophizer that we play probably any other than Shirley Q. It's who we play the most on this show. And turns out a man with great foresight. Long before Dunkin' Donuts did it.
We're never satisfied when it comes to food. You know, be good on this burger? A ham sandwich. Instead of a bun, let's use 2 donuts. That way we can have it for breakfast. Look out, McGriddle. Here comes the donut ham hamburger.
Jim Gaffigan, how did you know?
I didn't know. I mean,
that was the most absurd thing you could think of?
Yeah, it's really kind of the most ridiculous thing that comes to mind. But, the fast food companies, they got to just come up with new products, right? America, we love something new.
Yes, we do. Yes, we do. And we love, because I have my copy, and thanks to your nice lady, I pulled a fast one on you guys. You probably don't know all this. These are details beneath your pay grade. But your PR lady first sent me the book, which I appreciated. You said you were going to send it, and I was 3/4 of the way through reading it, and I lost it, and I emailed, and she sent me another one, and then I managed to find it. So I'm in possession of 2 of your copies of your book, Dad is Fat, which, by the way, folks, makes for a great Father's Day gift. How'd you like that? Was that good product placement?
That's good. That's a good plug. I appreciate that.
Before we get to the book and how funny you are and what tours you have coming up next, I know you've been out touring with the book. I want to hear about your dad. Tell me about Jim Gaffigan's dad.
Well, my dad.
Are you eating in the middle of our interview?
No.
Yes, you are.
No, it's nicotine gum.
Oh, okay. Okay.
I mean, I can't believe I'm awake. I've been awake like 5 days in a row. And, I mean, that's not to say when you have 5 kids that you're ever sleeping, really. But,
right, that's how you ended up with 5 kids.
Yeah. But, my dad was, I mean, I have a lot of respect for him, given that, now I'm a dad. Of course, when you become a dad, you have, like, a new perspective on what your father had to go through and, why he was cranky. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
So, but he was, I mean, I think that he really instilled an amazing work ethic. It's interesting. People read Dad is Fat, and occasionally in interviews they'll be like, oh, you didn't get along with your dad. I'm like, no, my dad, I totally got along with him. And a lot of the jokes that I have in there about my dad were some of the first stand-up that I ever wrote, 200 years ago. But, my dad was, he really, I think it was, he was the first one in his family to go to college, and he just did not want to have a lazy kid at all. And it's probably why I talk about laziness in such a romantic sense. He instilled this work ethic, and, he was a character. He was a chain smoker who, used to talk like this. What is it, Burry? Michael Burry? It is great to be on your show.
So your sloth is not by default. It's actually by design. You planned it that way.
I wish I planned it. I mean, I think there's a romantic notion of laziness, particularly when you have a lot of responsibilities. I mean, you can just have a job, but, there's something I think we secretly desire. I think that's the id, right? All we want to do is eat and sit in bed and watch TV, and there's something about that seems appealing. Obviously, we know that that's not fulfilling, but
says who?
There's something kind of initially really appealing about it. You're like, oh, if I could just somehow invent a mechanical arm to feed me while I lie in bed, that would be amazing. In the end, we're like lions. Lions sleep like 18 hours a day, and then they just go and attack an animal and eat it. I know that sounds horrible probably, but I think there's something about, I mean, I write a bunch of essays about sleep, and really that's kind of the superficial sacrifice of being a parent. It's like, what are you giving up? You're giving up like maybe an hour of sleep, but it's like what children give you is just, it's immeasurable. But also another point of the book is that, if you don't have kids, it sounds like I'm lying, because I spent most of my adult life not a parent, And, I would hear people talk about their kids, and I would be like, you don't have to convince me. You have to convince yourself. It seemed like they were lying.
Although I got to tell you, Jim Gaffigan is our guest. His new book is called Dad is Fat, and I've read it. And not surprisingly, it's funny. But I have to tell you, well, we'll talk about that in a minute, but I have to tell you about the book. It's a lot more serious than I thought. I mean, there's a short chapter on the fact that you cringe when people say that you are a family-friendly comic. I was surprised at that.
Well, it's not so much that I dislike my comedy. It's very much the whole terminology. I mean, as a comedian, I just want to be known as funny, and I do kind of enjoy the fact that you can listen to my stand-up, whether you're with, your 10-year-old kid or your 60-year-old mother, and it's not awkward. But, I make light of the fact that as a parent, the term family-friendly really means subpar. Like if you're going to a family-friendly restaurant,
it's no good.
The food's going to be bad. If you're staying in a family-friendly hotel, it might as well be connected to a water park. So it's more making light of it. And I also do think that comedians kind of either get too much credit or criticism for the type of comedy they do. I think it's just how it comes out. I mean, I write about things that I'm passionate about, and if you're talking about bacon, it's not really necessary to curse, so I think that I get a pass on it. And some of it is I also, I grew up in a small town, so it's not really, I wouldn't feel comfortable cursing in front of a large group of people anyway.
Yeah, I think cussing tends to be the kind of thing that people do as a crutch. I mean, because I enjoy it, and I think most people do enjoy it. But a lot of comedians who aren't funny just drop bombs, verbal bombs, because that keeps them from having to be funny. Jim Gaffigan is our guest. The book is called Dad is Fat. He can tell you the story coming up, but it was actually from one of his kids. And I got to tell you, I was lucky to have lunch with him and his 5 kids and his wife. And I mean, this is not a big staged production. I mean, they are a family on the road. It's the real deal. It's pretty neat, and it's a great Father's Day gift. More with Jim Gaffigan coming up. The book is called Dad is Fat. Go get it. Stay tuned. Jim Gaffigan is our guest, and he has a new book out. It's called It's called Dad is Fat.
Dad is Fat.
Dad is Fat, and the source of that story, for those who don't know, go ahead.
Well, my now 7-year-old son, my second oldest, his first sentence that he wrote on a dry erase board back when he was 4 or 5 was "Dad is fat," and he showed it to me, and he knew that I would laugh, and then I put him up for adoption, and so it's great.
We were talking off air. Jim Gaffigan is our guest. You've been on the road for 5 days. And with little kids, you worry about that. But usually you take the kids with you, I know, but you've been away. How do you deal with that?
Well, it's rough, right? Because, it's always nice to get a break, one night away is always kind of fun. But then, 2 nights, you just start hearing cats in the cradle just on this, this cycle. And so it's torturous, because this is precious time. And, it's rough, but, that's the great irony of this book. This book was, Dad is Fat is really kind of, I mean, being a father is really, it's the most important thing I'll do in my life, obviously. But the great irony is, like, doing this book, writing it kind of took me away from hanging out with my kids, and now promoting it, touring around, has taken me away from my kids. But thankfully, my bus tour that I'm on ends in Milwaukee, and my Jeannie and the kids are meeting me in Milwaukee, so that'll be good. So it'll be great to see them. We try and do some eye chat and stuff like that, but they're just blown away by the technology more than seeing me. But it's all good.
Jim Gaffigan is our guest. Now, on a tour like this, the book tour, do you stop in your hometown, the place where you grew up?
I normally would. When we're on a bus tour, I make a point of really, Jeannie and I construct my schedule around, so that I can be with my kids or I'm away for a very short period, which I know is an incredible luxury. We were talking about, there's guys that are in Afghanistan, looking for phone cards. So, whenever we usually do a 2-week bus tour at spring break where we met up and had lunch together, and we do a show a night, and this summer we're doing the West Coast where we're on a tour bus and we're doing a show a night and we're all piled on a tour bus, and it's kind of funny. But
it's got to be interesting for people that went to high school with you to go to an event like that. And there's Jim Gaffigan, funniest man in America. I went to high school with him. He wasn't even funny then.
Yeah, it's weird. I did an event in Indianapolis yesterday, and there was someone brought a photo of me in high school back when I had hair, and it's just it's weird, but it's been weird for a long time, and I mean weird in a good sense. I mean, obviously, all my friends that I went to high school with are happy for me, but it's a weird thing, it's a weird job to go on stage and make strangers laugh. I did not expect that this is what I would be doing or able to do when I was in high school. I always thought that, stand-up comics were just from New York or L.A., and, I'm grateful that I can do it. It's really fun.
Well, what I appreciated watching y'all at lunch was that you were texting for your next event, and you'd gone from, I think you'd been in San Antonio, then you came to Houston, and then you were going maybe to Oklahoma. But you keep a pretty lean team. I mean, it's just you and the family and a driver out on the road. I mean, that's unique. It did not feel like the rock star experience I expected. It felt like somebody in my family just coming through town.
Yeah, it's we always have a babysitter that we travel with. They usually quit the day we get back to New York City.
She looked worn out. She was meeting her buddy for a drink, as I recall.
Yeah. No, she's great. She's a friend of the family, but she was just like, this is ridiculous. Because it is, it's full time, and I have a whole essay about how we usually get a hotel room for 2 nights, and we never end up sleeping in the hotel room. We have the kind of breakfast at the hotel, and then we'll do a local activity, and then maybe we'll, get the kids in the hotel pool, and they'll just frighten all the businessmen away. My favorite part is being in the pool with all my kids and seeing some businessman or businesswoman walking into the hotel pool area excited to kind of take a relaxing swim, and there's just this gaggle of children in there, and they just turn around and leave.
Well, I thought of you. Jim Gaffigan is our guest. I thought of you. I was in Nashville 2 weeks ago, and we did an event at the Fontanelle, which is Barbara Mandrell's old home, and it's now owned by Dale Morris and the guy with Big and Rich, and it's a big concert venue and all that. And they told the story about Fontanelle, which was what Barbara Mandrell named it, is the soft spot on the top of a baby's head. And I thought of you because you have a section in the book where you talk about how kids have such bad taste and babies are born as skinheads, and you do that whole description about how ugly babies are. Nobody says that.
No, well, the thing is like babies are really, I also say that I think that babies should be classified as an antidepressant because it's really hard to be in a bad mood when a baby is smiling at you,
True.
Right? I mean, particularly, it's just, there's something amazing about it. But, little kids, I'm not expecting to watch The Wire with my 8-year-old, but it's amazing what they find interesting and how little we have in common with them. I mean, kids are the only human beings in the last 50 years to enjoy a parade. It's like they really want to be there. They're not like they're just walking by and they stumble upon it. Little kids, they love the merry-go-round, also known as the rotating piece of junk. It's like their taste in things is baffling. They love songs that, Old MacDonald Had a Farm, which obviously is about a guy who got, McDonald's who lost his farm to foreclosure. It's a sad story, really, but these kids are just laughing and singing along.